everybody, welcome to another episode of Capitol Spotlight. Today is a good one. We have Congressman Jim Jordan on the episode, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. This man is a beast when it comes to wrestling. We really get to know who he is outside of politics. He had a 150 win and 1 loss career in high school. He went on to be a 2 times NCAA champion in wrestling and a 3 times All-American. So this man can wrestle. We really get into that. We also learn about who he is as a sports fan, what he is as a family man. This is a great episode. Make sure to tune in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Capitol Spotlight. Today, we are here with Congressman Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee. Welcome to the show, Congressman.
Good to be with you, Dave.
Thanks for being here. So as we get started, let's just start off. Give us a little bit of your background. Where are you from? How did you grow up? And how did you get to Congress?
Well, just a country boy from Western Ohio. Married the pretty girl down the road who I've known since 4th grade. Love sports. Loved all sports. Wanted to, I always joke and say when I was in grade school, I had life figured out, like most grade school kids do.
Yep, going to be a baseball player.
I was going to be a football player. I was going to play middle linebacker. And I'm from Ohio, and I love Ohio sports, but I love your hometown, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, okay.
Because I grew up in the 70s, and they were the team. Terry Bradshaw, Lynn Swann,
Yes.
Franco Harris, Frenchie Fuqua, Mike Webster played center. Defense, I can name every player on defense, but my favorite guy, me and Joe Green, L.C. Green, Dwight White, Ernie Holmes, the whole front, the whole steel curtain. But my favorite guy was Jack Lambert because he was from Ohio and he played middle linebacker and was just the toughest guy. So I thought I was going to be the next Jack Lambert. I was going to play middle linebacker for the Steelers in the NFL.
Hopefully with more teeth.
Yeah. Remember he'd go sit on his helmet and just like scowl and go back out. He was just great when they played the Oakland Raiders back in those days. But as you can see, the good Lord had other designs. I am, 5'7.5", and so I had to pick another sport. Yeah. And in our family, it was wrestling. So wrestling was a huge part of our background. Went to college, University of Wisconsin, went there to wrestle. I always tell folks I majored in wrestling, but you're supposed to get a degree. So I got one in economics, and my wife went up there too. We were married between our junior and senior year, and then we have 4 kids, 8 grandkids, and after college was, I was in wrestling. Came back to Ohio, was assistant coach at Ohio State, and I did that for like 8 seasons, and you're at a point where it's time to either try to be a head coach in the Big Ten or do something else. And I was kind of looking to do something else and ran for office, and I've been in politics ever since.
So what was that initial jump for you? Why did you decide to get involved in politics?
I mean, in simple terms, you get married, you have kids, you look at the world different. You get tired of government taking your money and telling you what to do. And I was looking for a new challenge. And there's something about politics too, a race, that is
competition
is exactly right. I love the competition. I think the good Lord made us that you're supposed to compete. Americans get that, and so I was looking for a new challenge. Wanted to compete at something where it was directly me coaching. You're helping people, and it was great. But and I'm thinking about all this. I'm sort of getting interested in politics, and the state representative announces he's gonna retire. I'm like, just opened up, and I'm like. And it was funny, too, because I tell this story all the time. I was like, well, I think I'll run for state rep. I didn't know. I was just Joe Bag of Donuts. I didn't know what I was doing. So I go to the first and where I'm from in Western Ohio, it's basically you got to win the Republican primary. So I go talk to some Republicans in our home county, and I said, I'm thinking about running for state rep. And they said, well, you're a nice young guy, because I was young back then. You're a nice young guy. But this 2-term county commissioner is running for state rep, and he was the youngest county commissioner elected. He's been da-da-da-da-da-da. And they were politely saying, like, kind of patting you on the head and saying, like, you don't have a chance. And I politely said, we'll see, right? Like, that's why they blow the whistle and wrestle the match. That's why they, kick the ball off on Friday night. You got to play the game and see who's going to win. And we had a bunch of good people help us out. We busted our tails, knocked on doors. We were like people every Saturday knocking on doors. We beat this guy 70-30.
Jeez.
Just like, and it was, and then I won. And then a few years later, ran for state senate. Had then back what was the most expensive state senate primary in the history of our state. State senate district's about 350,000 people, and it was funny because in that primary, the governor, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, the Attorney General, the auditor, and a congressman named Boehner all endorsed my opponent in that primary. And I jokingly, I told my wife, I said, "Are you going to endorse my opponent? Or are you going to stick with me?" Because everyone was endorsing my opponent. But we had a lot of good people help us out in that race. And some people you never, like Matt Huffman was city council president at the time. He's now our state Senate president, going to be our next speaker in Ohio. Some good people help us out, and we won that race almost 60-40. So we've had some tough races when we first ran for it, but I love the competitive aspect of it, both in an election and then, of course, in a hearing, that kind of thing. So that's what got me interested.
So how do you, and I want to get more into your wrestling career because it's wild. Your record in high school is wild. But how did you take that winning mindset or that competitor's mindset and transfer it to politics? How do you flip that switch from a sport to politics?
I don't know that you have to learn it in sport, but I do think there's sort of a fundamental principle in life, and that is hard work doesn't guarantee success, but it sure improves your chances.
For sure.
So it's so much about hard work, and then I really give, my brother's been extremely successful in business and with wrestling and coaching, and I think he'd say the same thing. My dad made a huge difference for our family. And my mom. My dad's a union worker. My mom cleaned houses, and they put 3 kids through college. My dad he coached us in Little League. Him and my uncle started the kids' wrestling program at our school. And it's funny because all our buddies, my dad was total old school. And all our buddies, my brother's a year younger than me, all our buddies were afraid of my dad because he's like, your dad is so big and so strong. And so my dad's shorter than me, but he had this presence, but kids were afraid of him in a good way, but they played on the baseball team, they would hustle for him. On the wrestling mat, they would wrestle hard for him. He was just that kind of guy.
Nice.
And he was complete old school, and he talked about discipline, he talked about perseverance, he talked about hard work. Whenever we get if you get a cold or something during the season, he's like, get out there and sweat it out, man. You got to go work out. If you're like, that's the best way to get rid of a cold is go work out. So
I've heard that before.
He had a huge impact on a lot of kids in our little school. We're a little country school, and huge impact on my brother and I and my sister as well.
That's great. Tell me a little bit more about your district and the area you grew up. What makes it special?
Oh, our district is 435 in the country, and we're one of the top manufacturing districts, in the nation. Honda of America is headquartered in our district.
Very cool.
We got Whirlpool, some of their biggest facilities in our district. And then you got all the people who supply those facilities, and you got tool and die, you got CNC machines, you got people. Manufacturing's big, and then of course we're also the start of kind of serious agriculture, where corn and soybeans kind of start in Ohio and get serious as you move across the Midwest. And so I always, the old joke about Ohio is in Ohio you make things and grow things. And it's what we do in our district. And it's good, hardworking, kind of that Midwestern work ethic type of folks. So it's a great district, and I feel fortunate to get to represent the good families across West Central, North Central Ohio.
Absolutely. And so obviously you love sports. I'm very glad we're on the same page about football. That just makes things very easy. But you were, and probably still are, a Cincinnati Reds fan growing up. Tell us a little bit about that love.
Well, again, in the 70s, they were the team.
Yeah.
Big Red Machine, arguably the greatest team ever. I mean, the Yankees, there'd be Yankee fans who would disagree. But, you can, Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench, Tony Perez, Dave Concepcion, Ken Griffey Sr., who am I forgetting in that lineup? Foster, amazing team.
That was a heck of a team.
Yeah, and I always tell the story, and I think I remember this right, but, I was in 6th grade when the Reds played the Red Sox, considered one of the greatest series ever. And Game 6, of course, when Carlton Fisk hits it out in extra innings. Yeah. Forget 11th or 10th or 11th, I forget what inning it was. And he's waving it, the green monster and all. But what I remember is an inning or two before, the Red Sox, the game's tied. The Red Sox got a guy on third with 1 out. One or maybe no outs or 1 out. And I don't know who's at the plate. I don't know who's on third, but they hit a short fly ball to left, but it's foul. And I talked my mom into letting me stay up that night, and my dad had already left for where he worked third shift, and he'd left. And I talked to mom, and like, God, stay up. It's a game 6. And so she let me stay up, and but it's a fly ball to short left, and I'm like, don't catch it, because he's going to tag up, and the Reds are going to lose game 6. And Foster is playing left field. He catches it, and the guy tags up and comes home. Foster makes a throw and nails him at the plate. Man. And I'm like, great play. I'm glad you caught it. You are as a fan.
For sure.
But then, of course, like an inning or two later, I don't remember all the details, but Fisk hits a home run. But everyone forgets the next day, the Reds win Game 7 or 2 days, whenever. I think it was next day. They win Game 7. They win the series. So yeah, those are fun times if you're a Cincinnati Reds fan.
Have you continued your fandom still?
No, I watch some. I normally don't watch baseball until it's the playoffs and World Series. I don't watch near as much football until it's like gets serious, and sort of the same with. Now I love the Badgers football because Fickle's an Ohio guy and a wrestling guy, but so I kind of the other night they could have beat Oregon. They were playing the number 1 team at home, and they were right down to the end. So I try to follow Badger football.
Gotcha.
And then, of course, in our state, everyone's Buckeye football.
For sure. Yeah, that moment that I have just ingrained into my brain from childhood was in 2013 when the Pirates played the Reds in the NL Wild Card game. It was the first time the Pirates had been to the playoffs in 20 years. Yeah. I was 17 years old, so my whole life had been misery. And I was just like a lifelong fan, cared so much, and just sat through so many L's. But that was a moment. It was the game where we like chanted Cueto, and they hit back-to-back home runs. Yeah. It was a great time. But that's that moment of that'll always be stuck in my brain. When
you're a kid, like you get into your sports team. It's funny how you are. And then you get a little older, I think a lot of times it's more like your college, wherever you went to school, you sort of follow them.
For sure, unless you're a Pitt fan and they lose 3 straight football games and just break your heart.
Yeah. I will say this about Western PA and, well, frankly, all your state. There used to be this debate, more than you may want to know about wrestling, but there used to be this debate, like, who's got the best high school wrestling? Is it Ohio or Pennsylvania? And unfortunately, it is. I hate to admit, it is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania high school wrestling is phenomenal.
Is there a reason why?
There's just across, the 3 best states, frankly, are probably Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Jersey. There's just something about, I just working class, like Western PA is like, it's the same with that, why it's so tough on football. You got like just tough families in the coal mines and the steel mills. And so it's, just really good wrestling. But they're dumb. Penn State's killing it, and they have a bunch of Pennsylvania guys who start for them. Other great college programs are recruiting the Penn State guy or the Pennsylvania guys. So, the Pennsylvania, the WPIL, that is so tough.
That's where I grew up.
I actually wrestled they do this big competition. It's called the Dapper Dan, where the all-star team from Pennsylvania high school seniors take on a team from the rest of the country.
Jeez.
And sometimes Pennsylvania wins. That's how good they are. And I wrestled in it way back when I was a senior in my senior in high school. And they have it at the old field house at Pitt there. And they call it the Dapper Dan,
Man, that's very cool. Since we're on wrestling, let's talk about wrestling. Your high school record was 150-1. Mm-hmm. So you won 150 games, and there was matches, and there was 1 loss in there.
Yeah.
Tell us about the loss. We have to ask.
Rob Johnson, senior year, midway through the season, finals of a big tournament. He was good. He went on to do well in college. He was, I think, 3-time All-American. He just bettered me that night. I hate to say it, but I lost 7-4. And it's funny because even when I was behind, I just felt like I won all the others. I'm going to figure out a way to win.
For sure.
But didn't do it. I tell people though, it was actually it was good for me.
For sure.
I'd have preferred to win. Still mad I lost, but because it was the first time our high school as a team won the state tournament later that year. And I actually think if I hadn't lost, I don't know if we'd have come together as a team and won the state tournament. So I lose, and it's a big kind of big to do, whatever. And but we went right back to work, and you get a little more focused on because my goal was to go undefeated.
Yeah, for sure.
You want to win everything, and well, that's not going to happen. Let's go see if we can win this team state championship, and we did. We placed. My brother won it, his weight class. I won my weight class. We had another teammate who took second. He wrestled right between us, the weight class between us, and then my brother-in-law wrestled the weight above me, and he placed, and we were able to win it just with 4 guys placing by a few points. But it was the first time, and then they win it again in our team wins it again in '98 when my brother came back and was assistant. He'd coached in college and then came back and was assistant at our school, and then my brother took over in 2001, and they won the state tournament 20 years in a row.
Jeez.
And he had a couple years they were the best team. So I like to think maybe that loss was good and got our high school, thinking about winning team state championships, and my brother just took them to a whole new level.
I'm sure that was humbling for you too. Like if you go throughout all of high school undefeated, you go into college, I'm sure you're gonna have a little bit of extra cockiness, but that one loss will bring you down just a little bit, right?
Yeah, and college is a whole different story. That loss helped me too, because college back then is like kids today coming out of high school are a little more prepared because they get, they get more competition, and you'll see freshmen, and I did fine my freshman year, but it was a whole new step. I lost several times in college, but my junior senior went extremely well for us.
Yeah, so you were a 2 times NCAA champion and 3 times All-American, correct?
Yep.
Dang.
Yeah. And my freshman year, I think I would have had a chance. I was ranked pretty high, but you got to place in the top 8 in your weight class to be All-American at the national tournament. But I got an infection in my knee the Tuesday before Big Ten. And if you don't compete back then, if you didn't compete the Big Ten, you couldn't go to, you can't go to national. Same now, you got to compete in the qualifier, the national or the Big Ten qualifier. So I wrestled all season, started all season, but didn't get to go. And so then, in hindsight, I probably should have redshirted my second year, because I think I maybe could have won it 3 times. But I didn't redshirt and went right back at it and placed my sophomore year, and then got really focused, and it went well my junior and senior year.
So what kind of mindset do you have to encapsulate there to create such a mindset of preparation, a winning mindset? What were you doing as a high school and a college kid to set yourself up for so much success? My high school coach, we tell the story. I told you about how good our team was, and my brother. They built this big, nice wrestling room, and the room is named after our high school coach, who's passed away now. But Coach McCunn, Ron McCunn, it's called the Ron McCunn Wrestling Room. And Coach was, I tell people, he was the toughest teacher in our school by far. He taught chemistry and physics, and I think he was the toughest wrestling coach in the whole state. And this is not an exaggeration. Every day, every stinking day, he talked about discipline. In the classroom, he would say, "Hey, Jordan, this is chemistry class. This isn't, this is physics class. This is chemistry class. You want to do well in this class, it's going to take discipline. More importantly, this is my chemistry class." He's like, that just was his attitude. And he's like, it's going to take discipline. You have to read the material. You're going to have to come to class prepared, do the experiments, do all. And then in the wrestling room, it's like, he drove me nuts, because it was like, discipline's the most important quality you got to have. You're going to win. If you're going to have our team win, discipline, and it's just like, what, that guy, shut up. He sounds like my dad, and I get it from my dad, and I got to get it from my coach every day. But he had a great definition, and you walk in our wrestling room, and it's the Ron McCunn wrestling room, and this is the statement right below it. It says, discipline is doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. For sure.
And it's doing the hard things when you'd rather do things the easy way. It's doing things the tough way, the coach's way, when you'd rather do them the convenient way and your way. And but that was his mindset, and it was the same thing my dad taught us. And so we just my dad took us to tournaments. He trained, he competed, he did all this to get us ready. Even bought a wrestling mat, built a little building behind our house, and we'd do practice. And then the second practice, guys come over from all over the state, particularly on Sundays, and train some more. So, but it's what we said earlier. It's why You got to work hard. It just, and wrestling sort of, all sports I think teach that. A lot of other things teach that. But wrestling is like, it's so physical and such a kind of a one-on-one. It's just like, you just learn to work hard.
For sure. So how can staffers and members of Congress adapt a disciplined mindset in politics? How does that translate?
I think it's the same thing. You work hard. What I try to do in the job here is, remember the folks back home. Remember what you told them you were going to do. I always say we make the job too complicated. I think it's pretty simple. What'd you tell the voters you're going to do? If you get elected, go do what you said.
Yeah.
So try to do that. And then I always say, just be prepared. Like for hearings, if you just walk in and open up the folder and look at what the staff gave you and then think you're going to be able to do a productive cross-examination or a direct examination of a witness, okay, maybe certain talented people can do that, but most of us can't.
Yeah.
So you got to prepare, you got to read, you got to work with your staff, you got to have good staff and all this stuff and be ready for the hearings. And then, of course, back home, I think just politics is about talking to people. You're a representative. You got to go back home and talk to the folks you get the privilege of representing. So we try to do that a lot too. But it's no different than anything else. You got to work hard.
For sure. So quickly, before I forgot to ask earlier, do you think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame?
I kind of do, now that Pete has passed. He was just such, what he did was totally wrong. And I'm not a, I don't bet on sports, I don't gamble on sports, but a lot of people do, but I don't. I think it's obviously wrong for what he did, but man, could he play. And all those, when he's like, the pictures where he's like airborne, head first.
Iconic.
And I was too young to remember it, but my dad always talked about it. And of course, I've seen videos of when he took out Ray Fosse in the All-Star game. It kind of changed Fosse's career. But Pete, you talk about working hard and playing to win.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that attitude.
It's just like, look at the hit leaders list and how far ahead he is and just how mind-boggling. I think it's 4,400 or something hits.
4,192.
Okay, it's 4,200.
Well,
okay.
Is it? I might be wrong on that number, but I think it's something like that. 4,000. It's over 4,000.
It's over 4,000, which is just ridiculous.
But I think it's 4,192.
All right, we'll have
maybe
to
I'm
get
wrong,
some
but it's
fact
something like
checking
that.
on that.
I may be wrong on that, but it's something.
But it's just a ridiculous number. So I understand why they want to push away from including him, but it just on pure skill alone, it's so hard to shut down something like that.
It's funny because a few months back during the summer, I got to meet George Brett. One of my colleagues comes to me and he goes, hey, one of our staffers is marrying George Brett's son. I asked him what he wants to do when he's here. We're going to show him around and everything. But he mentioned he'd love to say hello to you. And I'm like, he goes, you got time to meet George Brett? I go, well, of course I got time to meet George. And he was the nicest guy in the world. And so my colleague comes to get me. We go out into the Statuary Hall area. And he's walking around with his wife and his boys. And he sees me and he comes right over. He's the friendliest, nicest guy. And of course, the first thing I said is, when you hit that out with the pine tar, I said, how did you get on top of that fastball? Because it was like a high one.
Yeah.
And the high hard fastball is hard to hit.
For sure.
And of course, he was like Pete Rose, one of the greatest hitters of all time. And he was funny. He goes, you got to swing easy. And it was like, man, it looked like you swung the bat hard. But what a night. We talked about that, and we talked about super nice fellow, super nice individual, and what a hitter he was too.
Yeah,
so it's kind of, I've never met Pete Rose, but George Brett was really, really special. But Pete would get in that crouch.
Yep.
And he'd follow the ball, if he took a pitch, he'd follow it and just played hard. You appreciate that.
It's got to be weird and very cool to someone you've seen on TV and like idolize, like George Brett, and he's wanting to talk to you.
Well, I don't know. I don't know why. I talked to him once on the phone, Speaker McCarthy. We were riding somewhere, and he goes, "Hey, say hello to George Brett." And we were talking to him, and you could tell he's like, conservative guy, and had seen some of the hearings and things. But really, really nice guy. Really nice guy.
That's very cool. So tell us a little bit about how you met your wife. You were 13, she was 14, correct?
Actually, younger. We met. Her brothers, her one brother, and my brother been best friends since probably first grade, and when we first started, my brother and I first started wrestling, you needed other guys to train with, and my brother says, well, my friend Andy is a good guy, you know, he's pretty tough. I don't know if they got in fights on the playground or, you know, whatever you did back, you know, you're always like playing tackle football and everything. He's tough. And so Andy and his brother, who are now my brother-in-laws, we started training with them, and then next year, my dad and my uncle formed like a wrestling club, and it was all the kids and, you know, number of kids in our school.
That's great.
So it was all from wrestling, and you know, wrestled with her brothers, but she was the pretty sister. So yeah, we've known each other forever.
Wow, that's great. What is it like to have? When did you guys start dating? And was that like a consistent thing?
Yeah, most of the time. There was some times where I think I broke up with her a couple times with, you know, stupid
classic high school college thing.
Yeah. But then no, we went off to college together and then got engaged after she had went she's a year older. She went to school. She went to Ohio State for a year and then transferred to Wisconsin. She worked in the ticket office.
Cool.
Our wrestling coach got her job in the ticket office, the athletic ticket office. And then, like I said, we got married, got engaged after first or second year, and then we're married between our junior and senior year.
Nice, that's great. To have someone to go through this whole journey with you has got to be so special.
Oh, she's the nicest lady in the world. I'm the luckiest. Knucklehead like me gets to marry a pretty girl like that. And we should have got married. We should have got married sooner. Should have got married after, you know, should have got married our freshman year, but we waited a few years. We listened to my dad. He said, yeah, maybe you want to wait. But we should have done it. We should have got married sooner.
Fair enough. So as far as, do you have any dating advice for the people out there in today's world?
No, I don't give
a partner?
Just what they don't need, you know, some politician giving dating advice. We have all four of ours are married with, like I said, we got 7 granddaughters and we just had a grandson. So, yeah, I don't pretend to give dating advice. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So tell us about, so you've been here for almost 2 decades now, correct? How has Congress changed over this time period?
Social media has changed. You know, information is just, you know, quicker. We didn't have, like, I don't remember, you know, the podcast phenomena. And when I first got here in 2007, it was probably starting, and I don't know all the, you know, the time frame on all that, but just the media and news is just quicker. It's probably a little more partisan, and that's not all good. I mean, sometimes they're just where the Democrats are, where the left is, you know, you're just against it. But I feel like we used to be able to work together a little more.
Yeah.
I always use the example of Congressman Kucinich, who is a good friend of mine, and he and I we would actually work together, particularly on like civil liberty type issues. And Dennis is a friend. Dennis is he's the guy when we worked through Dennis when we had RFK Jr. come testify a year and a half ago. Great guy. So I feel like we maybe lost a little bit of that, and I try to foster that where we can. But it's a little more partisan and a little more fast paced with the news, I think.
At least our mindset at Connect, and as a former staffer from 2019 to 2022, I kind of got to see a very interesting time in politics and very divisive. And so I wanted to create something that helped people find stuff in common, to build community across the aisle. So I also just want to briefly talk about the first impeachment hearing from less of a political standpoint, but more of like a cultural experience of, you got to be part of an impeachment trial. How crazy was that? What was the experience like for you on a personal level of just dealing with the circus?
No, it was intense. Maybe the most intense time I've been in Congress, because then Leader McCarthy, he said, he actually asked a member of Intel to come off the Intelligence Committee, and put me on for like 3 months. Because if you remember, Schiff was doing all the depositions down in the bunker where no one could see, which is ridiculous, but he did it. And so I spent months down there with other committee members, you know, asking the questions. We had great staff who did a lot of the direct examination and of the in the depositions. So I was on the Intel Committee, and then we had hearings in the Intel Committee, and then of course it moved to the Judiciary Committee, which I'm on. So it was like sort of the just the way it worked out, but it worked out that way because of Leader McCarthy, all the way through.
Yeah.
One of the few members of Congress who was Intel,
For sure.
Judiciary, and we just tried to get the facts out. And if you remember, the conventional wisdom was when we went into that impeachment, every Democrat was going to vote to impeach President Trump in the House, and some Republicans were going to join.
Yeah.
And when it all got done, it was just the opposite. Every Republican voted not to impeach President Trump. 2 Democrats voted with us, and 1 Democrat switched parties and voted with us, Jeff Van Drew.
Yeah.
So I like to think we won the debate in a pretty compelling way, to where we got Democrats to vote with us.
Yeah, and I think that was a really good experience for the general American public to see debate in its true form, because we had multiple televised hearings in 2 committees.
Yep.
Where we got to just talk things out, and that was some good politics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to switch to a little bit of a lighter topic here, you're known for not wearing a jacket in the Capitol. What's up with that? Why? I like it. I did it a lot on the Hill too, but why?
Good for you. It's when you're here in the summer, it is just hot.
Yep.
You're out walking around, and so I just always took the jacket off because you don't want to be sweating all the time. And then frankly, when you're in a hearing, like if I think that individual in the witness stand has not been square with the people I get to represent, it's my job to demonstrate that in a cross-examination, kind of format that you get when you're in committee hearing. And it's sometimes you get fired up. And so I don't know. I just feel more comfortable. It's like you're not all like tight with some jacket. It's like everyone is like.
Yeah, it was a DC summer for myself too. I'm like, you know what? I'm just pulling a Jim Jordan. I'm not wearing jackets anymore.
It is hot
It
here
is
in
too
summer.
hot to be walking to work right now.
You go outside at all, you're like, oh, you're sweating like crazy.
Last main question, but I know you kind of brought it up earlier in your journey to get to where you are today, but how does faith impact your decision making on the Hill and just your life in general?
Well, look, we're all in need of God's grace, and the gospel is Jesus came, bled, and died for sinners like me. So I so appreciate that. And then I always use this scripture verse because it's my favorite, and it conveys an attitude that I think an attitude that's always been there for our country and for the people of our country. But my favorite verse is 2 Timothy 4:7. And I always say Paul's the older guy giving advice to the younger guy, Timothy, and he says, fight the good fight, finish the course, keep the faith. In fact, he says, I've fought the good fight, I've finished the course, I've kept the faith. He's referenced himself, but it's, I think, a message. And I tell people I love the verse because it's not a wimpy verse.
Yeah,
it's
for
like
sure.
fight, finish, keep. I mean, those are words of action. It's not, Americans aren't timid kind of folks. We're Americans, and we fight and we finish and we keep faith with the things that matter, like our faith, but also the principles that matter in our country. And so I'm excited about, what happened in this last election. I think we got a chance to refocus the federal government on serving we the people, and hopefully getting smaller. When government's smaller, freedom is greater, and a government that also respects the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment.
Nice, that's great. Yeah, I like that. I don't think we're called to be timid people for sure. We're supposed to be very active, and that's a great verse to sum that up. Last question for you. What else do you want people to know about who Jim Jordan is outside of politics?
Just regular guy. I love we got a house back home that was built in 1837.
Wow.
We lived there 27 years now. We got 8 acres. We got a creek, 2 creeks that come together there. I love. I mow about 4 acres of it, and I try to do it. Every once in a while, we have to hire someone, but I try to do it most of the time myself because I love mowing. The first job we ever had, my brother and I, we mowed lawns. And so you like mowing it straight and neat.
Sure.
I like my weed eater, the chainsaw, the leaf blower. I got the big zero turn. I love all that stuff. So just a You know, I think deep down, every guy wants to at some point pretend like they're a farmer, and
Yeah,
so that's how I sort of pretend.
Yeah, growing up, I was always like, Dad, let me cut the grass. And be like, no, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. It's that there's something about cutting grass, the like making the line straight. It's a great time.
I love that.
Well, thank you for joining us today,
Congressman. Enjoyed it, David. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, it's David again. Thank you guys for listening today. We're really excited about this Capital Spotlight podcast and getting it off the ground. So make sure to tune in again. And the easiest way to do that is subscribe to our channels. Check us out on social media at Connect App, CNCT, APP, basically everywhere. So find us there, subscribe to our newsletter, and check out our website, capitalconnect.com. Thanks, guys.